Hey Terraria fans, welcome back to another episode here on the channel. Today we're going to be making something a bit different from our usual speed builds. Today we're gonna get something done that I've been, getting a lot of requests for, and that is a tutorial. Now, today's tutorial, guys, is going to cover 5 different stairs that you can build when you are in Terraria. Now, these are just the versions that I've come up with. There are a whole ton of other ones that you should look into, but these are 5 that I recommend you give a shot if you're trying to improve your builds just a little bit. Alright, so for our first build, we're going to start with the absolute basics, and that's going to be taking some platforms and just simply, putting them on an angle and making yourself some stairs. Now, this is the basic version you'll see. To upgrade this a little bit, I do recommend you put some blocks or something underneath. In this case, we're just going to put a bit of spooky wood underneath, I think, paint it brown. And you can kind of see that this is the most basic of stairs that you could make. And you could also actuate this, but again, we're going to keep it simple. I do recommend you also try to fill it in a little bit. It will look a little bit better, but this is the absolute basics, guys. Some people just do the platforms, and just adding this little layer does help a lot, and it's something that I strongly recommend you add and just play around with in terms of both the colors and the block types that you use, because it's going to add a lot of texture to your details without actually really adding a whole lot of work. Now, again, I recognize that this design is super simple, and I didn't even really want to include it at the outset of this video, but I thought it'd be important to really just sort of highlight the progression that we'll go through and to show people that you can do a lot with, a little. Alright, for our second design, you're going to be pretty familiar with this. This is going to be a spiral staircase. Now, all you need is a vertical sort of piece like this. In this case, I'm using some brown painted mahogany fence, and then you're going to go ahead and grab yourself some platforms. Now, the platforms is where most people kind of make mistakes. Now, you could just simply do the platforms like this, where they cross in front of the beam, then they go to the outside, and then they cross in front of the beam once again. And that's okay. Like, this will look pretty good. It's something that most people who are unfamiliar with building this style tend to do, and there's no real issue with it. It kind of gives the illusion, but we could do a lot better. And I think the way to really separate this is to make sure that you don't have the stairs crossing in front of the beam at every point. What I mean by that is that you want to make sure that you have proper separation. So here you're going to see that we're going to go ahead and cross in front of the beam right there. And then what we're going to do is go to the outside without actually touching it. So here it's going to begin to narrow down again. And now we're going to do a single step before making another singular step that then goes around. So this already gives that curved illusion that we're looking for. And then we're going to continue that upwards, essentially creating this pattern but in reverse. So we'll have 1 followed by 2 followed by 3 and then another 3 before we begin the turn again. So again, guys, the key here is not to cross in front of this vertical pole that we have more than, once or twice, depending how tall this thing is, because it's going to ruin the illusion. So here we will cross yet again in front of the beam, and then basically that's all you have to do. Now, to make these stairs pop even more, we're going to go ahead and add some just generic background wall. This is just going to be a bit of a sample for you, so we're going to go ahead and fill this in. And now we're going to grab a different wall, like Ebonstone or like Boreal wall, and paint it a different color, but simply put that wall underneath each of the platforms. And what this is going to do is create the illusion of some steps. Now, again, you can paint this any color you want. I'm just using gray here, but in this case, it's okay to put this in front of the beam where necessary. So now it's really going to give us this illusion of actual steps. And when you have a lot of other things in the background, it actually really gives a lot of contrast, and it kind of gives that feel of, 3D spiraling stairs. A lot of times people don't do this, and this is where that kind of mistake comes in. Again, this is a pretty simple design once you've done it once or twice. More often than not, though, people tend to have some difficulties with the actual placement of the platforms. If you get that right, this next step is super easy. And yeah, there you go, guys. There's our kind of spiral staircase. Again, you could do this a couple of other ways, but this is going to be a nice upgrade from what you might typically make in one of your Terraria builds. Alright, with the spiral case done, it is time to do a staircase design that I get a lot of questions for because it is my most used one at the moment. It combines a bit of the designs from the spiral staircase along with the first one that you saw. It's very simple, but it has a nice effect, and I call this one a staircase with a rail, or a stacked staircase. So you're going to start with a few platforms in the middle, and then you're going to offset a few of your fences. In this case, I'm using mahogany. Now that offset is really important because it's going to actually allow us to connect our minecart rail, which is going to make sort of this well, railing that you might hold onto when you're climbing the stairs. So here you can see we're going to give ourselves a little ramp, and then we're simply going to finish off the actual step by connecting it, and then we can put down our sort of supporting structure. Now this as it is okay, but we definitely want to put some more spooky wood or a block of your choosing underneath to give it this kind of stair-like effect. Now I do often recommend to people that you should probably actuate this section because it lets you pass through. It's not necessary, but it does help with movement within your own building, and it kind of just looks a little better if you also hammer it down, but I leave that up to you. You just got to add your minecart rail, and I tend to mess this up a few times, so just be a little bit patient, but you're going to drag this across the front of that and then angle it upwards, and then all you have to do is get it to the desired location at the top before putting down a little bit more fence, and then that'll be sort of the connecting piece where you're going to have your sort of railing sit. I also recommend you actually use your hammer to hammer that down. Just looks a little bit more neat. Now technically this is done, but I'm going to add the walls in the background so you can see how I make these sort of steps look a little bit more realistic, and then so you can kind of see how the area with the rail looks a little bit more, well, like different and separated from the rest of the background. So sorry, I grabbed some Ebonstone brick wall and I just put it in the background here for the main steps, similar to what we did with the spiral staircase, except I have to paint this gray so you can actually see it. And it looks pretty good for now, and I think we end up painting this white later anyways, but you just want some contrast. The next thing we're gonna do is get something that has some vertical elements to it. So in this case, some ebon wood wall is fine. I'm gonna paint that brown. You could also use bamboo, which is what I typically use, but I decided to go with something a little bit different here. Not that it really matters, it is of course a tutorial. So now you can kind of see that there's a little bit of a contrast, but what we really need is a background wall that would sort of emulate an actual build. So we're gonna go ahead and fill that in now. So the wall filled in, you can see that we don't have the kind of colors that we want. So I'm gonna go ahead and paint a couple of pieces here, white and some different colors. And that's just so you can see better contrast. But in general, the idea is that all this sort of stands out a little bit more. Again, guys, you can use any platform types that you like, any materials or woods that you like, any background walls you like, play around with it. This is just a quick design that you can use for your next build. All right, so with that one out of the way, it is time to move on to our more advanced stair design. Now, this is a type of design that I don't typically use all the time. This is what I call a layered stair. It's actually not that hard to make. It just doesn't fit every build. It can look really intricate, but I think it doesn't always need to be used. And it's really tempting to make things more complicated than they need to be. So in this one, you're going to start with a very basic just platform. In this case, I'm using some steampunk platforms, and then a wall that has a vertical element to it. In this case, some ebonwood wall. And again, this looks okay as it is. And then we're going to start to add our layers. So we're going to start with some pearl wood, and this is painted brown as well. And we're just going to make a quick little stair, similar to what we did in our previous design there. Just make a little staircase and kind of let it go to the top. We're then going to grab some spooky wood and make a similar design, just making sure we have enough space between them. Finally, we'll just take some normal wood and we're just going to make a little bit of a block house here. Again, you can do it this way. I decided to stack it like this. And then we're going to take our hammer and we're simply going to angle all of this into position. Now, right now it looks a little bit messy, I know, but once we angle it all, you're going to kind of see what I'm talking about. The stair has a number of layers. It looks pretty interesting. And it just, I don't know, just it feels like it fits like into the corners of some builds or into like the design of a build that just gives it a bit more texture without you having to do a whole lot of extra work. But like I said, I don't use this often because I don't necessarily think it fits in every design. Now at this point, the build is basically finished. We just want to add a bit of our mahogany fence to the backside just to kind of connect this all up. And since we have this fence, if you want to make this even fancier, you can go ahead and add some rail as well. So to make the rail, just go ahead and grab some mahogany fence and just kind of spread it out somewhat evenly along your staircase. Then you're simply going to grab your minecart track and go ahead and just connect that all up, similar to what we did in our third design. And you can kind of just see that we have a pretty decent looking staircase. Now, again, guys, you could use some different options here. You can make this out of lumber if you wanted and angle it. It works, but you're going to go ahead and have to actuate that or it won't quite look right. But it's just a different option that you can use should you choose to go that route. And as you can see, guys, we have a very interesting kind of intricate looking staircase. Again, you could use this in a lot of different builds, but it is a bit more work and I don't always think that it fits every design. All right, so we have finally arrived at our fifth and final stair design. Now this is what I call a flat or a wide staircase, and it's not super complicated, although I would say it's a little bit more advanced, and I don't use it in too many builds. If you've seen some of my videos, you will sort of recognize this pattern, but basically all you're going to do is just take your platforms and put them in an offset pattern like this, leaving one extra block to whatever direction you are heading in this case to my right. So you can see that I have more of a, well, yeah, a little bit of an angle going here. And the idea with this is that you're simply going to then level this off like so, and then bring the staircase back the other way. Now, the size of the second staircase that now goes to our left and comes down towards us doesn't necessarily have to be the exact same size as the first one. That symmetry can be nice, but it's not actually necessary. The hard part here is actually connecting all the pieces up and making sure that you have something that looks structured and supported. Once your design is set, go ahead and hammer the edges and connect it up. This will kind of give this illusion that the stairs are actually connecting to something and begins to give you the first set of the design. So make sure you do this on both sides. It's going to be a little bit finicky at first. It's going to look like you're doing it wrong, but once you connect them up, it should look something a little bit like that. As you can see, it starts to look a little bit like a staircase. And then you're just going to do this for the bottom side as well. Again, on this bottom side, you're going to want to do it towards you. So you go ahead and just kind of angle them down like so, and it should work pretty well. You might make, again, a few mistakes like I will, but once you get the hang of it, just hit the edges and you'll get the right design. Looks a little bit like this, and you're going to want to do that on the inside as well. And this kind of narrows in those steps a bit. And again, for now, it's a little bit hard to maybe get your eyes and your head around, but don't worry, we'll fix that. We're simply going to add ourselves a few minor additions, and that's going to include some vertical pieces and fence. In this case, again, going with our trusty mahogany wooden fence, and we're just going to let this be sort of the guide and the thing that kind of holds everything up. It gives it some structure, and it just looks pretty good. I know there's a lot of different ways you could do this. I've seen some people do it with columns or with stone or palladium, and anything is fine. I just find the fence is easier because I can simply just, well, walk through it. I don't need to actuate anything or, do extra steps. Once all of your posts are in place, it's time now to add some walls, and this is going to help give us some contrast and some separation. So I'm just using some normal wood wall here just to kind of highlight my example. So go ahead and fill this in as best you can, and then go ahead and fill out the outer section as well. But for the middle section, you're probably going to want to fill this with a different material. I just think it looks a little bit different and gives a bit more contrast to the design. So I just kind of went with some stone here. It doesn't really matter what you use, but you can kind of pick your poison here. And wood, stone, doesn't matter. Any of it will look good. The most important piece to this design, guys, though, is filling in those stairs. And here I'm using some ebon stone painted white, and it just really gives a lot of contrast. It actually makes it look like some steps. And so now you can see the design really begin to pop and follow through. It's not always perfect, obviously, depending how you do it, but this is really just to give you a good idea of what this could look like. Again, it doesn't work for every design, for every build. That's okay. It's very normal. But you can see that there's a lot of potential with each of these stair designs. So I hope you guys enjoyed these stairs. Let me know what you guys prefer, like what your favorite design was, either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. I'm pretty partial to number 3. I do use it a lot. I think number 5 to me is one that I like just the way it looks visually. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below. But there you go, guys. That'll do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed these little builds. I know a few people have been asking for the tutorials, so I do hope that these are helpful. And let me know in the comments down below which design you like the most between numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. I'm a little partial to 3, as you guys know, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. So that's it for me. As always, guys, thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. We will see you in the next one.